So things have been a little chaotic with Mizi NO.
Last time you saw the game, we had one finished puzzle with a bunch of bugs and some huge gaps between the pieces.
We basically released the Mizi NO Steam page without any of the levels being actually playable. And while that was happening, we started actually refining the gameplay. And what I mean by that is we added sounds, an outline, and a drop shadow. And it makes such a huge difference. One problem that we have now is that the outline is kind of around the puzzle pieces, and that makes the silhouette a bit harder to recognize, but we'll just push that problem down the line. In other news...
So, remember these items we made for the Steam page?
Joseph has cut those 3 items up and made levels, and he also introduced curves. Because before that we were just kind of cutting it up in straight lines, and like that was fun. But the curves make it really difficult. For the jar, it has curves and straights, and it is so satisfying to puzzle, it's great. I think it has about like 20 to 30 pieces, and you can finish the puzzle relatively fast. The bowl, I think, is just straight lines, and it's also really fun to puzzle with all the colors and such. And then we get to the picture. Oh boy, Joseph made this one difficult on purpose. And we're still not sure if it's fun difficult or if it's frustrating difficult. When I tested it, I texted him in all caps, "What have you done?" So, good news, we have a way to do difficulty. Bad news, we currently have one level that is so frustrating that we don't really want to play it, which is bad. But another good news, we like playing the game. Playing Cats Organized Neatly was like fine.
You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
But playing Mizi NO, it's like really fun. Good morning. It's been a while since I recorded for Mizi NO. We have the Steam page up. Yeah, that's about it. I am currently working on the intro sequence to every level. And the idea was that you'd have like maybe 3, I'm gonna say 3 because that's a number that sounds doable, that you're gonna have 3 cats that throw the item off the table. And that sequence should give the player like 1 to 2 seconds where they can see the item so they know what it looks like before it breaks, and then they puzzle it together. And I've already started it yesterday. I was so in the zone that I didn't really record much. First of all, I just watched a bunch of cat videos, which was honestly the best research phase that I've had. Then I settled on 6 animations and sketched out kind of the key poses. And I'm probably gonna narrow it down to 3, like combine 2 of them. I still don't know, But to test the whole workflow, I finished one of the drawings, or I thought it was finished. And then I showed Joseph and he was like, "This is very artsy, not really that cute." And I was like, yeah, you can ride.
I gave the cat some more colors and just made it look way more detailed, and I really like how it came out. And then I just sat down for a couple of hours and animated it.
And then what I did today was save out that graphic into a spreadsheet and then import it into Gamemaker. So what I'm currently working on is this sequence where I have the cat doing their animation, throwing shit off. I have the table, and then I also have the item. And for the item, I use the image index. I think it's called a property. So if I change a number, I can change the type of item. I need to call with Uzia later, but I'm hoping that this is enough for him to always set the image index to the level index. So when it's level 1, you have the bowl. When it's level 2, you have like a vase or something. You get what I'm saying. So the only thing I need to do now is add 2 more sequences, because I want one of them being the item just falling down. So you get like half a second more to look at it, and then I need one where it just like shatters and like basically just a bunch of squiggly lines, and a sound effect. But yeah, this is a whole test, and hopefully by the end of the day this will be finished and working. And once it does, I can go in and like refine the Mizi.
Gamemaker sequences are still one of the most OP features in my opinion, and I got the timing down in no time at all. The last asset I needed to make was a simple shadow frame-by-frame animation. I pretty much just draw one frame after the other and then refine them a little so it doesn't look as jarring. After implementing everything together with Uzia, it was finally time to show Joseph what we had made.
Mizi, don't do it, Mizi, no!
Geil.
Fuck you, Mizi! Mizi, stop! Okay, good morning. I didn't really film Mizi NO for the past week. I mainly worked on the intro sequence where the cat throws a thing off a table, and that's mostly because I just wanted to focus on that task and like get it done. We have menu, you can start a level, the starting sequence plays where the Mizi throws the object that is the level of the table. After you've finished the level, before, like whenever you would put the two final pieces together, it would just jump to the next level. Right now what it's doing, it's showing you the finished object, it's moving it to the center of the screen, and there's an effect that plays. So basically we have like all of the building blocks in place, I think. So what I want to do today is just make a bunch of objects. Good morning. So I sketched like 50 items yesterday, I think like 55 or something, and it's just been like mugs, vases, and then some teapots. And I think I've only done 4 teapots, but they come in like a bazillion shapes, so in theory I could just add 20 more teapots. I'm trying not to. Yeah, today I want to add color to most of the sketches, and I still want to add some more like normal items, so it's not just like fancy vases. I'm hoping that Mizi NO is gonna do well and we can just make like a shit ton of DLC, because like while I was designing I was already thinking of like I could do like a Japan DLC where you fix stuff with like the what's that technique called? Where you put it together and then put the gold dust on it and it looks like you fixed it with gold and it's supposed to be stronger than before and yada yada yada. So doing that, or like minimalism or a maximalism DLC, with minimalism like having no patterns at all, where you just have to look at the cuts and then like the subtle texture changes to complete the puzzle, and then maximalism like full on like crazy shit that you have to puzzle together. I don't know, I'm just very into the interior design rabbit hole, and I just want to do that for like a month. Right now what I'm planning to do is just add a bunch of more like normal items, and I'm talking about stuff like, for example, a Tabasco bottle, like obviously not with Tabasco in it, but like just something that you would have around in a normal house that can fall down and that you can puzzle back together.
I try to mostly focus on the silhouette of the item I'm drawing. Oh no. In case of the lamps, I found some lampshades and lamp stands. I then combined them together and scaled them so they would make for an interesting item. And then of course I also draw some normal items like perfume bottles and soap dispensers. When coloring the items, I try to focus on just the flat shapes. Also, my lines don't have to be super clean at this point because Joseph will vectorize these for me after I'm done. I actually really like this process because the heavy lifting is done by the sketch, and at this point I just have to fill out the shapes and think about nice colors, and it's kind of like coloring one of those coloring books, if you know what I mean. This is what the sketches look like after I'm done. Chicken! Then I sent the items over to Joseph. He uses Affinity Designer to turn all my shapes into clean vectors.
And now it's time to add texture, and because it's really hard to show what I'm doing on the actual assets, let me show you with a way simpler example in Photoshop.
So, if this is the shape that I want to add some texture to, this is how I would go about it. The first brush I use is this noise brush, and I use this to add a gradient. And how I go about adding a gradient most of the time is from light to dark and from cool to warm, or warm to cool, depending on which color I'm working with. I look at this pinkish hue that I have here, and that is just 100% in the red. So to get it a little more warm, I go into the orange and I also go a little brighter. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, I think this is fine. Then I select that pink again. And then what I do is I go into the opposite direction. So I select the red and I go down into purples. And then I also drag the color like just a little darker. Step number 2 is adding splotches. And again, here I have a brush that just adds these, like almost like you'd taken a wet brush and flickered it onto the object. I click on like one of the colors, let's select this orange at the top, and then I just click once or twice, just so we can get these little tiny splotches. But yeah, I'm happy with this. And then the last step is this. This is a paper texture. And what I do is I clip it to the object, I set it to overlay, and then I change the hue. So in this case, like remember how the tone that we had here was mostly pink, and then I add the texture and now it's like very orangey. What I do is I just shift over the color so that it's more pink, and then I also, let's desaturate it a little. And this is something I take into account, right? So this object is very desaturated in contrast to when I add the texture. So I always try and do a little less saturation because I know I will add the texture on top. And what the texture does is it just gives it this little like paper like grit. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, this is basically how I texture all of the objects. And as for my layer management, I keep every color as its own layer, except for details like the font here. If the item looks too flat and should be more rounded, I sometimes put a multiply layer on top of it and add shading to the sides with the same noise brush. Once I'm happy, I add the color splotches. Lastly, I add the paper texture over the whole item and then tweak the color. This really helps me unify the whole item. And very rarely, like you can see here, I tweak the green separately because the contrast just didn't look right. But yeah, this is basically how I texture all of the objects. And now you can probably imagine that this will just take some time until all of the items are finished, because yes, I do this process to every item and it just takes a while. But I really want to put thought into each and every one of them, because ultimately they are the puzzles. And the reason why I'm adding the gradients and the color splotches and the texture is that all of them can give the player information on how to solve the puzzle, and I really like that. So yeah, thank you for sticking around till the end, and see you in the next development vlog.